Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me stand up here. If we can have we got the slides? There we go, Connecting Townships. All right, so I've been with Project Isizwe for about the last 7 years. And hopefully I can share with you some of the tricks and what we've learned out of working in these areas. So if we can shoot to the next slide. Have I got a clicker? There we go. Fantastic. Right, sorry, it's a little bit blurred. But this is an analysis I did very back of the envelope of some work that Cisco have done with their predictions of how much data people use in the world. And I sort of stripped out Africa from the Middle East and tried to get a sort of average per user, how much internet do we use each month. In Europe, it's around 50 gigabytes. In Africa, it's around 10, okay? What's really interesting, though, those deep blue lines, so the light blue is our fixed broadband, or let's call it Wi-Fi, and the dark blue is mobile data. And what fascinates me about this is that the amount of data your average African uses, the amount of mobile data, is about 7 to 8 gigs a month, which is similar to a European, okay? It's in the Wi-Fi, it's in the fixed access that Europe is 20 times more per person than Africa is. And there's a really simple reason for that, is that infrastructure hasn't been deployed effectively enough in Africa. So this is a really exciting slide in terms of where the market is. Actually, the market is not in mobile data in Africa anymore. That market, I think, is saturated because your average African uses the same amount of mobile data as your average European. Where the opportunity is in connecting up homes, and connecting up those homes on fixed broadband basis. Now, it costs, apparently, according to Cisco, it's about 22 times more to connect, in the equipment cost, to connect someone with mobile data than it is to connect them with Wi-Fi data. I can't justify that number, I've just heard Cisco say it. But that's sort of makes sense, because when I'm at home, I'm not going at 200 kilometers in a train and having to hand my data over from, one tower to the next tower. So it stands to reason that mobile data equipment is a lot more expensive. So there's a massive, massive opportunity, we believe, in connecting Africa up with fixed broadband. And it's a really, really important social need to do that as well, because without that, Africa gets once again left behind as a continent. Right. Let me go on to the next slide, which is where I've done another very back of the envelope calculation of, well, what's the market size? What can you expect out of this? Okay. So what I've done, I've taken ICASA's report that comes out each year, which is a really worthwhile report reading. And in there, they've got their prepaid figures, which comes to basically our mobile band of 4 brothers, earn 56 billion rand a year out of prepaid mobile data or voice. I think it's more data than voice now. And that is spread roughly across 14 million homes. There's 17 million homes in South Africa. Let's assume the top 3, they would sign you up on contracts. And then the next 14 million homes are in this prepaid market. So if we just simply divide 56 billion by 14 million homes, the maths actually comes to 333 per month per home. That's sort of how much revenue they're spending on mobile data as an average across the whole thing. So that's a very broad view of the sort of market pricing you can get out of these homes in South Africa. Okay. Now, here we have a very interesting slide of two places, both beginning with K, Katlehong and Kayamandi. Okay, both have got fiber. There is a marked difference between Kayamandi and Katlehong, and that is the fiber on the left has got lots of drops to the homes, and the fiber on the right doesn't have any drops to the homes. Now, the basic reason for that is, and when you're going into township areas, is to get the pricing model right, the package size right. Us, in our privileged world, get paid monthly, and therefore, when we're designing packages, seem to decide that monthly is the best way to bill. Okay? Now, in a lot of the township areas, it's a daily hustle. Today you have money, tomorrow you don't. The next day you might have money again. The following day you won't. So I think it's absolutely critical to get daily billing mechanisms in place. And if you talk to anyone that's been, any ISP that's deployed in the townships with the Vuma product, the biggest nightmare they have is collecting the debts at each month. And what we feel very strongly is you actually just got to go pay as you go. So what the project in Kayamandi with FiberTime did, which we got very involved with in the beginning of that project, our two philosophies that we put into that was drop a router as you go, drop as you go, and pay as you go. For me, that's critical because that upfront fee is too high. Whether it's 1,500 or whatever it is, it's generally too high. And also then your monthly fee of 400 is too high. Now, they may well pay 400 over the month, okay? But just don't expect 400 in any one go. If you want to sell cigarettes in the township, I haven't tried that myself, but what you do is you crack the pack open and sell them one by one. And really that's the key with, I think, with low-income deployments, is get a pay-as-you-go mechanism and get your package size that it's affordable, particularly for the youth, because they're the ones that are really repair. And that comes to £5 a day per device, an affordable amount. Now we're thinking, all right, once you getting it into an area, instead of thinking about the revenue per home, why don't we think about the revenue per hectare? Okay? Because the revenue per hectare then looks at density of housing, and their buyers are really a tenth of the amount of revenue coming into Westville. So historically, for the first 10 years of fiber deployments, we focused on the Westvilles, on the Daneferns. We've got the founder of fiber into the home here, Paul Colmer, into Danefern. And we focused on those areas, okay? But if you look down there, and I've done a spend of connectivity of around 2.5% of household income, and that's against a WEF white paper, because they say 4%, which includes your TV. Now, what's interesting, I gave you figures for a mobile spend in the previous slide, but actually we haven't even touched the TV spend. And what FiberTime have found in Kayamandi is that's the market they're aiming after, actually more than the mobile spend. The market is much more interested in Netflix and watching online TV than they are in saving on mobile data. So that's another whole lunch that you can eat of someone else's. And I think DSTV are struggling a little bit, from what I read in the press. They're for the density of homes. But look at this. Kayamandi turns out double the potential of Westville on a revenue per hectare. Now, I know your capital deployment is potentially per home, but at the end of the day, fiber also is about density. And when the houses are dense enough together, fiber will really work. And we've actually got, 2 businesses at least, and there's actually a lot more, but 2 I closely know about that are making a real success out of this. So on this, sorry, let me go back there. Yeah, sorry, this is a little bit small. So on this revenue, what we've done for the whole country, and I'm very happy to share with you these maps. We've got them up on the web, not publicly yet, but I've actually mapped out a revenue per hectare for every small area. So in the census, they have various categories, and a small area is about 200 homes. And then what we've done is we've mapped the ward municipality demographics and revenue per home data to create a view of our revenue potential per hectare. Now, sorry, it's a little bit small. In the north is Kayamandi, and you can see it's lighting up red as the highest revenue potential, whereas and that's beating a lot of the leafy suburb areas of Stellenbosch, which we've fibered up straight away. So what we've got is this resource that's available to people that want to go into townships to say, use what we've done. We're waiting now for the 2022 census data, and we can actually then show you the delta between 2011 and 2022, and show you the revenue potential per hectare of going into these areas. Right, let me move on. So I'm putting this up because I think this is the biggest problem, and I'm sorry I haven't got any golden bullet answers here, except for this. This is the area that we are struggling with the most, is that I've got my phone, I've got the Wi-Fi washing over me, I've got R5, and last time well, there's a little slot here, but I can't fit my R5 into the phone. And that's the biggest problem, is that we have got a very cash-based society. A lot of the citizens in these areas have got bank accounts, okay? But you might, thanks, 10 minutes. You might have noticed, if you drive past on a Friday, the queues at the ATM. And you might be thinking, why on earth is there a queues at the ATM? So what happens is on a Friday, they get, maybe as soon as they get paid, they'll belt it to the ATM and pull all the money out of their bank account before the loan sharks get it on Saturday. And so despite having bank accounts, we've still got this really cash-based society. That is a problem that we are needing to solve. We've been using products like VuluCoin. We've been hoping to get resellers going. Only about, in our view, only about 5% of the users want to be resellers, which is fine. We only get about 15% of the revenue through a reselling model. The rest comes from people buying the vouchers at flash machines and putting it in. But it's still clunky and complicated, and if we could get that user journey better, we feel that we'll get a lot more revenue. Now, one of the things with this, and we use 2 systems. We use PowerLinks from Sprinks, and we use VuluCoin for the payment gateway. And we had an epiphany just recently, because we've always been worried about scale. Will our system scale? And what we've realized is actually we don't need to worry about scale. You can just have lots of user journey systems. As long as you aggregate them up into a central BI database, that's all that matters. And really, there's only 2 aspects of data that we want, I feel is important. One is your session file from a Radius server, who came on, when they came on, where they came on, how long, how much data did they use, and what package. You can get that from the Radius server's session file. And then the sales file is who bought, when did they buy, and how much did they buy. And you just marry those two together, and you can start getting really nice revenue pictures out. So we get revenue pictures out like this, so we can see exactly where our key revenue users are, and start like drilling in on that and trying to sell more in those areas. This is Lamontville. But the reason why I've put this slide as well is even on uncapped R5 pay as you might, eat as much as you like, not pay as much as you like, you pay R5 but unlimited data. We're getting an average of about 1 gig to 1.5 gigs per month per usage. And that translates to, because we put a bit of free in there as well, we're earning about R1.50 per gigabyte out of our sustainable networks that we've experimented with. Now, for ISPs here, what I'd like you to do is go away, and maybe you can tell me what your figure is, that'd be really helpful. I want you to look at your total income and your total number of gigs that you spew out a month, okay? And divide the one by the other, and work out what is your revenue per gigabyte. And I think you're going to see it comes in lower than 1.5, which means that there's a massive business opportunity here of connecting up our townships. And in doing that, you'll do a tremendous good to South Africa, because it will really, really conquer this digital divide, help education, lots of positive good. And that's the end of my talk. Thank you.
Oh, wait. Margins on cellular. And I think the cheapest at the moment, Telkom bought out a package for $6.99 a month with a 2 terabit data cap. Now, if someone's got a calculator, you can work out how much that is a gig. And I think it's something like 20, 30 cents. So there's a harsh reality out there that R1.50 is pretty damn good. Yeah? And, you know, the fact that they're charging 85 Rand a gig on prepaid, because they're like robbing the poor, you know, and giving everything to the rich. It's the reverse Robin Hood model, you know. But yeah, so R1, and obviously they can make money on those contracts. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. They're not flushing the money down the toilet. So I believe R1.50 is a real number. And I think it's a good idea what Tim suggested, that you must go back to your own networks and actually work out what you're making per gig via the backhaul. Just an interesting point of how low it really can go.
Thanks, Paul.
Hi, Donald Jolly. Thank you very much, Tim. What do you see as your biggest challenge in terms of scaling this out to the rest of South Africa and Africa?
That cash flow cycle.
Sorry, what's that?
That cash flow cycle.
Just cash flow. So investment? So if someone comes to you with lots of money and says...
Yeah, there are investment engines out there. I guess for community networks is having the CA skill on board to be able to open up that investment. So I'd actually put investment as below as below trying to solve that cash flow cycle in these communities. Like, for example, we've got a network in Mpopomeni, which if you've ever swum the Mid-Mile Mile, is the township that you are swimming towards, okay? They've got like 33,000 people and 2 ATMs there. You know, it's just actually managing that whole flow of cash is probably, I would want to solve that problem before, and I think when that problem's solved, the investors are there. There's a lot of money that can be tapped into as long as you can prove the business model well enough. Thanks, Don.
Well, there is a question at the back. Yeah.
The cryptocurrency that you use, Vula coin. Well, I'm not allowed to call it a cryptocurrency, but the token that you use on the network. How's that worked out for you? Is it working well? And did the outages on the Solana network and stuff affect you guys? How do you deal with that? And where do you see that going for you in future? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, look, VulaCoin, there's quite a few companies that have spun out of Project Isizwe down the years. One is Namola, which, if you've seen that as a safety app. VulaCoin was another one that span out of us. I think we made a bit of a mistake in going sort of a different currency. We should have made it Rand, but I think there were some regulatory issues around the wallet and Rand and that sort of thing. So I think we introduced a bit too much unnecessary complexity there. Stability has been all right. I mean, that outage, unfortunately, networks have outages that it went alongside a bit of load shedding and that sort of thing. So they've been great in the sense that it's working. Okay, I still feel that user journey we can improve on, and I feel that's where a lot of our work needs to happen in that. And I think the more simple you make it, the better. Yeah. Any ideas on that front are more than welcome. The other thing, actually, I want to put out there, if anyone's got a system that I can show an advert at the end of it, I am looking for a system that can do an advert at the end of it without one-time passwords with SMSs. Please come and see me, because I really would like to deploy it quickly.
Well, thank you very much. Because we've run out of time, we don't have time for any other questions, but here's a token of appreciation for presenting. So, thank you very much. Now, next we have Sean Pater, who's going to tell us about network equality for the rural areas.